All right, thank you everybody for coming out today. I'm really excited about tonight's meeting. As a reminder, for those of you who haven't been to one of the meetings yet, I'm Dave Cody. I'm the Director of Communications and Public Relations for the school district. I got some special guests with us tonight. We have Jeff and Mary Dess. We have Ante Udovic and Coach John Gillespie. We're going to introduce them a little bit later on and let them talk a little bit about how they've done things over at South Milwaukee, possibly providing a blueprint for how we can move forward in the school district in New Berlin. Well, I've already told you what we're going to do today, but I am going to do a little bit of a brief review of the previous two meetings, again, for those who haven't been here, and also for our guests to get a little bit of a better idea of some of the things that we're talking about, and they can kind of relate it to the project that they did. As a reminder, this is just the Board of Education's resolution that allowed us to get together as a task force, form the task force. If you click on the link, I should mention we are recording the presentation so that we can share it out with those who weren't able to come today. And also, I left the Post-it notes and the pens there. That's just if you want to jot down notes or if you want to jot down some questions for the panel later. That's what those are there for. So. Again, if you click on that resolution link, that'll kind of show you exactly what the school board has agreed to allow us to do, and that's kind of a bit of a summary right there. We are on a timeline. We are trying to get a recommendation from this group to our superintendent, Mr. Garza, by November 1st, and then from there, we will be taking that recommendation to the school board within a month after that. So. And we'll get to that point. I'll tell you a little bit about how I think we're going to get there as we move forward. Again, this is just a very quick recap. This is a very condensed version of the previous two meetings. As you are aware, this is the current status of our facilities, our stadiums. The surfaces don't always hold up to the weather. Our tracks are definitely in disrepair. They need to be repaired fully. Softball, baseball, field availability often is dependent on field playability, and by that I mean weather. Weather. It depends on the weather. We do have Title IX considerations when it comes to baseball and softball, as we've talked about. So if we do something at a softball field, we have to do something at a baseball field, or vice versa, to make sure that it is equal. And then one thing that was a bit of a surprise a couple months ago when we mentioned this, because it was news to us too, but the West Baseball Field is no longer considered in that floodplain, so there are things that we can do there that we previously thought that we couldn't do as far as turfing the infield goes. And then also we've talked about some of the other things that we could do to enhance the other spaces that we have, and that includes lighting, additional lighting, and some reconfiguration of the green spaces. Specifically, that's mostly here at Eisenhower, where we have the spaces between the softball complex and the football soccer stadium. So there is all that green space in there that if we did a little bit, we reorganized some things, added some lighting, maybe regraded some things, it could provide a better facility that we could use both for our teams as well as with the community. These are the upgrades that we have discussed with Point of Beginnings. Point of Beginnings is a company that does a lot of these types of projects. They're based up in Stevens Point. They've kind of walked us through some of the things that we could do. And this is kind of pie in the sky. This is everything we'd like to do. It's not necessarily everything that we're going to be able to do. Again, we've talked about the stadium project. That's the number indicated as number 1 there. Again, that also includes some of the track facilities like the throws and the jumps. A new track would be included in that stadium project. There is some cleanup around the outside, the exterior of that of the stadium. The grandstands, kind of a sticking point for some of you, understandably so, because it's an expensive addition or expensive upgrade, but it is something that if we were to do the stadium at Eisenhower, the grandstands, it would make sense to do it at that time and not later, because we wouldn't have access to the west grandstands without having to go over all the new construction, all over the new facility. I'm going to pause there and mention I did send out all the questions that were asked through the feedback form We did answer all those, and anything that was emailed to us. All of those things have been answered to the best of our ability. I mean, there are some things that we don't have answers to, but I hope you have a chance to read that. It's 12 pages of light reading, but hopefully you have a chance to look through it, and some of the questions that have been popping up, and you'll see some answers there. I only mention that because I know the grandstands was a question that came up regularly and often. Again, 4 is potentially turfing, synthetic turfing the infield of the baseball diamond. Similarly, 5 is synthetic turf on the softball field. And then 8 and 9 is what I was referring to before as far as reconfiguring some of that green space over at Eisenhower to maximize it. We could get some lighting on any new grandstands that could help light the left of those 3 fields, again, so that we could use it into the evening hours. Reorganizing or repositioning the baseball diamond would allow us to open up some space there too. So that's a quick recap of some of the things that, some of the potential projects that could happen over at Eisenhower. Similarly, this is what Point of Beginnings has helped us kind of develop for over at West. Again, number 1 is a stadium upgrade all the way around, a new track, a synthetic turf field that would be accommodating for both, and same with Eisenhower, accommodating for both soccer and football, and obviously lots of other uses. And again, I should have mentioned, just because it's green doesn't mean it's turf. It just means that that would be a new or an upgraded facility. So I want to avoid any confusion there. Number 1 down at the bottom is just improving and relocating the throws for track. And same with the number 1 towards the top of the screen there. That's for the jumps and the pole vault. Number 2 is some of that sports lighting that we've talked about. Again, just improving that area and possibly, and Pat, correct me if I'm wrong, is that lighting that field to the right of that, or is that just lighting included in the stadium?
We would try to accommodate lighting field
Current soccer. That was a question that was pointed out to me. It was in that FAQ or the questions, and the question was about West, and I wrote about Eisenhower, and that was my mistake. It was intended, everything is accurate except the answer was supposed to be about West. So yes, number 2 is some lighting that would help light that field next to it. 3 is the softball diamond, again, looking at turfing the infield or the entire project, and 4 is looking at turfing the infield of the baseball diamond. So that's kind of the whole, again, if we could do everything all at once or immediately, those would be all the things that we'd like to do. And here are some of the price tags that we talked about. Obviously, it is a large price tag when you look at everything in total. But we did talk about how, at the last meeting, about how some of those things could be chunked out a little bit, and these are some of the phases that we kind of talked about. Phase 1 is looking at possibly just improving the stadiums at both schools. Phase 2 is some type of solution as it relates to softball and baseball, and I say some type of solution because, again, it doesn't necessarily mean doing both baseball fields and both softball fields. It could mean doing the baseball field here and the softball field at West and sharing those facilities. It could mean some type of joint project. It's come up with talking about with the city as far as either Malone Park or another facility. So again, a lot of different options there that we haven't been able to narrow down yet because we're still talking about things with you guys, and we're also still talking about things with the city. Phase 3 is really just that the reconfiguring the green space over at Eisenhower. So that's kind of why that project is kind of the third piece. It has somewhat the least amount of impact as far as the students that would be impacted or that would benefit from that project. If you add it all up, it could be anywhere from $9.3 million to $15.3 million, which again, a very large price tag. But as we talked about or 2 months ago, I guess now, there are some ways that you could shrink that down and chunk it out and make it a little bit more palatable as far as a fundraising effort goes. I'm just going to recap. This is the last meeting for those of you who weren't able to make it. That one we didn't record because we kind of had some breakout sessions. So this one was just presented on the website. Hopefully you had a chance to take a look at it. We did talk about some potential funding mechanisms that could help us move any type of project like this forward. We do have what's called Fund 21 and Fund 41. Fund 21 is essentially it's a fund where donors can contribute to or provide monetary gifts to the district. They can be designated for a specific use. That was a question that came up a couple times. So definitely Fund 21 can be dollars that are designated for a specific project. Fund 41 is our long-range capital improvement fund, which we started a few years ago. We've done a lot of projects around the district out of that fund. None of them necessarily, well, I shouldn't say none of them. Some of them related to athletics. We just did the bleachers over at Eisenhower out of that fund. The district does have in the long-range plan a commitment of putting $2 million towards the tracks, because each track is approximately $1 million rebuild. So that money is in the long-range plan, which means that money is also part of this project if we were to move forward. So if we were to do both stadiums, the district has already committed $2 million to that project through the long-range plan. Other funding mechanisms that we talked about for a possible capital campaign, naming rights and sponsorships. As we've talked about, we have had some success in the last couple years with some naming rights to the tune of about $300,000. I do believe, and I say I because it's been a project of mine to get this up and running, but I do believe that the momentum would definitely pick up again, or just I think it would increase quite a bit if we were talking about naming rights for new facilities and new venues. Right now, we're trying to get naming rights for facilities that we already have, and it's gone well. But I think you would see, and maybe this group would be able to talk about that when we get to that portion. But I think you would see more excitement and more support to get their name on a new facility somewhere in our district. And then the Education Foundation in Berlin, again, a bit of a newer venture for us, or at least the relaunch has been a newer venture and far more successful than the first time the foundation got going. Their current focus is, and I say it there, but Julie is back there, the director, is really student scholarships and teacher grants, and they've done a great job of supporting both of those programs the last couple of years. They would definitely be a valuable resource for supporting the project as a whole through either helping us set up various funds, collecting some of the funds for us, grant research and application, and I do know South Milwaukee had quite a bit of success as far as grants go. And then like the donor and donation software would be another thing that Julie and the foundation would be able to help with. Capital campaign, just a quick overview for those, again, who weren't there. It's really a targeted fundraising effort that takes place over a defined period of time. We've got a lot of questions, and I appreciated the enthusiasm, but some people were like, hey, who's on the list that we can call right now? And it's like, well, we're not at that point yet. So we really have to kind of come up with a plan, a capital campaign, and again, this group is going to be able to talk about that better than I. Again, it's often developed because of a need that is outside of the normal operating budget. There are 6 key components, depending on who you ask, but these are the 6 that I know of. Strict deadlines and timeline, focused team, clear goals, targeted fundraising plan, which I just mentioned. This is a little different for a public entity like us. The quiet phase for major gifts, that's more of a private sector thing than it is a public sector, because we're having this meeting right now and everyone knows we're having this meeting and they all know that we're trying to do this. So there's not much quiet about it. But then the public phase is really that piece where you're trying to, after you've secured some of those major gifts, you're starting to do some of those smaller type of fundraisers to kind of bridge the gap between that big chunk and the final project. Again, just a little bit of an overview of a capital campaign. These are some of the key principles, involving top-level volunteers, which all of these individuals are, and they're going to be able to talk about that. Definitely requires a lot of relationship building. And again, really a huge chunk of the project, it needs to be secured through major gifts. And again, roughly about 65% of that is from those major donors before you go public. Again, a little different for us because we are public right now. That leads me right into the real reason why we're here today, which is to hear from these folks. These are members of the Launching a Legacy Committee from South Milwaukee. And I think I've got this right, and I'm happy if you can correct me if I got any of this wrong, but this is just from research that I was kind of digging through. Back in 2021, they did receive that big gift that would be essential to any project. They received $1 million gift from the Bucyrus Foundation that kickstarted their capital campaign of about $4.4 million. Shortly thereafter, after they received that gift, they were able to do their public launch and got going in October of 2022. Construction began in the spring of 2023 and completed last November. And something that I'm sure you'll want to hear about is that their fundraising is continuing today. They did not wait till they had all the funds to go and start their project. That's a question that came up quite a bit in that FAQ. So we're definitely going to hear from them as to how they talked to got their school board to agree to that. This is the final project, or the final product rather. To the left, is the football stadium, and then at the top is Gillespie Field, and underneath that is the softball diamond. So these are the three projects that they were able to complete. The stadium is turf or lined for soccer and football. Included a new track, right? Yep. I'm just making things up as I go.
No,
I'm
you're
hoping I got it.
New pole vault, new discus, new jumps, all field events, everything redone.
Yep, and it looks like both baseball and softball are just infields, turfed infields, correct? Yep. So that's what can happen if you get a group like this together and try to make it happen. Again, I briefly introduced them, but I'm going to kind of go through them again. We have Jeff Dess, who is still the co-chair of the committee. His wife, Mary Dess, is the treasurer. John Gillespie is also co-chair of the committee, and Ante is the activities and athletic director at South Milwaukee. So I've started with a handful of questions that I'm going to ask them so that you guys can hear from them, and then we're going to open it up to you, and you guys can ask any questions that you want. They've agreed to stay as long as you want them to stay, so we're just going to fire away, and hopefully you can glean some very valuable information from all of them. And this is for anybody on the panel, so please jump in, but and especially you may like to hear about the treasurer role, but I'd like to hear about all your roles on the committee and some of the other roles too from individuals who may not have been here. So maybe tell a little bit about what you had to do in your role, and then some of the other people that were on the committee as well.
Sure. So as a co-chair, pretty much was asked to be the co-chair. But basically our goals, John and I's goals was we're more like a liaison between our committee. We were kind of the ones that would go out and speak to different groups about fundraising. We did a lot of volunteering ourselves. But it was important because, we had a person that ran fundraisers before, so it was important for her to establish an honorary chair, a co-chair, a treasurer, and then, a group of volunteers. So that's kind of how our group kind of came about. But, we continue today. I think our major point was that John and I would just go out and speak to different groups about, this is what we're doing. This is why we're doing it. Can you contribute more money? So we're kind of in that role, I would say mostly from our group. So, John, if you want to add to that.
Sure. What I would say is we were the biggest advocates. I think Jeff and I have spent nearly our entire lives in South Milwaukee, so that was our passion and our drive, knowing that we needed this. So speaking to our Lions, Knights of Columbus, any type of groups that were there, we would go down to our farmers market, any of those things, because I can tell you a lot of the guys my age didn't understand wanting to do this. They didn't want to contribute money to it, and it took a little bit of coaxing, and a lot of them have jumped on board since, especially seeing the project where it is and the fact that we were able to do it. So being an advocate, so I think as the co-chairs, you are spending most of your time sending a positive message to to all different age groups. You have young families, and then you have old timers that have been around, like, that was good enough for me, why isn't it good enough for them now? And it's really not about all of that. It really is about, one of the things I heard one of our superintendents say was how important extracurricular activities are to any school district. And that was really a driving force to me that I could go and spread that message. And it makes for better students. And when it's coming from your superintendent, well, you know that there's some truth to that. So that was a driving force for me.
Mayor, I know the treasurer role is incredibly important. Tell me a little bit about some of the things
I
that you have to do.
guess I didn't know how much it was until I started doing it. So for me, the treasurer it's not just going to the bank and cashing checks and writing checks and doing stuff, but it is, I'm a steward of a large amount of money with checks and balances, and it has to be to the penny. So for me, it was, I'm detail-oriented, so it works great, but anything somebody wants to do or anything, an event we're having, everything has to check out on the money side. So whoever you have do that. Everyone is on the same Google sheet. They can all check the finances minute to minute, so I'm not doing it myself. It's still that we only have a group of 10, so it's great to see as many people here. And your project is, 6 times more than ours, potentially. So I would say, though, as a treasurer, get somebody who is not afraid to ask people for money after they said they'll give you money. And then they don't give you that money, and then you have to, keep asking and keep on them in a nice, polite way. But, you still have to be like, hey, you pledged, and, looking forward to that check, and, yada, yada. And so there's a part of that you have to keep coming back to the same people and saying, hey, you know what, it's August of 2024, and, last year, August, you gave your payment, and now this year it's due again. And, so you have to keep track of all of that. Some of it, for me, comes down to, I also do all the mailers. So anyone that gives a donation, I'm the one who writes the letter, thanks them for the donation. Here's our IRS, number, here's this, and sends those letters out. I do all the mailers for prospective donors. We just did all of our vendors at the school district, asking them for donations since we give them our business. I also do all of our online marketing stuff, which I am not an online I don't know how that got assigned to me. It might have been my husband, thank you. I do our Facebook page. I do all of that. I don't know why I do all of that, but it just because we only have 10 people. Also getting together like Square and Venmo and PayPal. That's all under the treasurer's, kind of umbrella as well. And the fees that go along with that, and which ones work and which ones don't work, and where we can use them and where we can't use them, and all that kind of stuff.
I'm gonna ask you a question in a second, so.
Can I just add to that a little bit? And and it might be a little bit different for your district, but when we decided to do this and our superintendent was on board, we needed to find a mechanism to how we were going to handle the money.
Yeah.
And we decided as a group that we wanted to be in charge of the money. And that meant that we ran all this money, $3.1 million or more, through a subsidiary of our South Milwaukee Football Booster Club, because we are a 501c3, and we, I hate to say it, we did not want, donations going into the school pot and then having it disappear. So we decided that we were gonna run this through our own private entity, and that's why we needed her to make track and keep track of that money. So I don't know how this is gonna work with you, or if you're gonna have a private donation, a private, entity to
Yeah.
do that.
And then when I would just get checks cut to the district, so we would get, $250,000 accumulated, I would get a check, go to the board meetings, present the check to the board, saying this is from the Launching a Legacy towards the fields.
Coach, could you talk about any of the other roles from individuals who weren't here and some of the things that they did?
We have a communications director who, he was part of the group that helped us out. He wasn't at every meeting, but he, spread the word a lot
He helped with
for us.
grants
Yeah,
quite a bit.
Yeah, right,
Yeah.
correct. He wrote the grants.
Yeah.
And we actually went through a couple of superintendents, and so the good thing was that, well, all of them have been on board. We went through three, actually, because we had the one who started it, and then we had a replacement for him come in to finish the school year last year, and then we have our new one, and all three of them have been great as far as understanding what we were trying to do and supporting what we were doing. And Jen Seeloff, I don't even know what her official title is, but.
Legal and HR for the district.
Okay, so as we went through the superintendents, though, she was the one that made sure we had meetings and orchestrated, that we were getting together once a month or every other month or whatever it took for us at that time. So between them and the fact that Ante had done so much work ahead of time, there were so many questions that he could answer as we were going through this that it made it a lot easier. But the person that Jeff referred to, is Sandy, who she had come from, I believe, Jefferson, and her husband was a superintendent, so she had done a lot of this big money raising. And so she was the one that kind of gave us the guidelines of what we were going to do. And that quiet phase thing for us was there were people in town that kind of knew what we were doing, but you'd be surprised at how many people don't know what you're doing. And she would say, we're gonna get a lot of money from big donors first, and then when we open it up to the public, we'll only have so much of that left that we have to raise. And we had, correct me if I'm wrong, a 4-year window to be able to raise the money. So that was another big thing because of having this window, we could say to people, if you want to donate $1,000, you give $250 for 4 years. We don't need you to give us $1,000 on the spot. We had families give $10,000 because they could give $2,500 a year. And so having that timeline really helped. And now I kind of got off the subject of who was on the board or with it, but the superintendent and the board of director or the school board and having the principal and the athletic director, those were the main things for us. And then the rest of us volunteered. We filled in and did the co-chairs and that, but without a doubt, Mary has the biggest and the toughest job.
Ante, if you could talk about the relationship between the school district and the Launching a Legacy Committee, as far as things that were specific for the school district to do and handle, and things that were specific for the launching the committee to take care of.
Yeah, I mean, we were very much intertwined, like John had said, our legal and HR person, Jen, she was super instrumental, because we initially started off with the person who was gonna spearhead things being our superintendent, but he ended up leaving for a different superintendent's job, and then we had an interim superintendent, and so it wasn't fair to expect him to guide us through this, so that's when Jen took over to the day-to-day, meetings that we held. And so she was real pivotal in keeping us structured and efficient and moving in a good way with the agendas and everything. So it really, the committee was fantastic. I mean, without, before we decided who were gonna be the co-chairs, that was honestly one of the most important decisions that we had to make, because we needed it to be people who had credibility in the community, but also credibility that reaches out. And it was, an absolute no-brainer to have John as the first co-chair, because he's been an institution in South Milwaukee. He's in 2 Wisconsin Coaching Hall of Fames. He's beloved by so many people, and he was somebody that had so much credibility to go out there. And Jeff was, again, a big community guy and alumni as well. And it just really was pivotal to have those people. And it just so happened that Jeff brought Mary along to it, which was the most important thing that he brought to the table, is having Mary there. So But yeah, we worked together pretty seamlessly. We had a few other, you know, parents of either current students or alums as well. And yeah, I mean, at meetings, we just kind of picked and chose, all right, who can do this? Who's going to go talk to this organization? Who's going to talk to this company? Who's going to write this letter? And then we had the, you know, we were successful in getting a couple of big grants through the Packers and the NFL, and that was obviously instrumental for us money-wise, and our communications person was huge in doing that. So it was really, I mean, a really seamless, I felt, a seamless collaboration between the district and the committee.
Dave, can I add to that?
Yeah.
And we have to also recognize that Ante, who's been our AD for 22 years, has probably been trying to get this project through for the last 15. And the reason it hasn't gone through, and I'll be very candid, is that we had two previous superintendents that wanted nothing to do with anything with athletics. And so that's why we never had this done before. When we built the school, we pushed for it. You guys have played on our fields. You saw them when it rains. I mean, it was really seriously dangerous. And we went to the school board before, and we didn't have superintendents that wanted to do this. We didn't have a budget director that wanted to do this. They thought it was safe. So when we had our superintendent come in and we met with him, and he was like, I can't believe this hasn't been done. And that's what started the spearhead of this project, along with the Bucyrus Foundation. So you have to have your superintendent behind this. You have to have your budget director behind this. And I think they can get that across to the board.
And I would also add, you need all your booster club. I don't know if you run one booster club or if you're all separate. Okay, I appreciate the separate booster clubs myself, but you need buy-in from all of them, not with just money, because the football booster, which my husband is also on, they donated $100,000, the football booster club did, to this project. We didn't get that from baseball, and we didn't get that from softball. You need tie-in, you need buy-in from all the stakeholders, soccer, band, track, cross, because they use the field to train on. All of the sports need to come to the table, because we didn't have that. And that's one of the things that I wished we would have done 3 years ago, to say, look, football has all this skin in the game, what are the rest of you, come on. Because we didn't have to do the softball field or the baseball field at the time. Because when we got the Bucyrus Foundation grant, they said it was just for the football field. And we said, well, that's really not fair, right? I mean, so we said, if we're gonna do it, we're gonna include the other sports. And we did, and now looking back, we should have said, hey, you know, the boosters of all the groups. And I understand soccer's small compared to football and yada, yada, but you gotta do your part. So that would be something I would go back and change, and I would say, look, everybody needs to be at the table.
Can we talk about that, sorry, Jeff, can we talk about that $1 million gift, and how did that come to fruition? Did they come to you, or was that something that you had worked on behind the scenes? Just how did that Bucyrus gift come? And it doesn't matter who answers.
Well, I'll just start off. We reached out to Bucyrus, the company, I mean, the mid-2000s, so like 2005, 2006, 2007. Again, it was tricky because we had to kind of push the superintendent to at least explore this. So we had talked with them, and so as long ago as that, so 19 years ago, we had approached them. So that had been in the air for a long time. And our former mayor, Eric Brooks, he was pivotal in working with the Bucyrus Foundation and our superintendent at the time, Jeff Weiss. They worked real hard with Tim Sullivan, who was spearheading the Bucyrus Foundation, and they had a number of conversations, leading into 2021. And that basically, that group was pivotal in getting us them to really look at it. And there was actually, the Bucyrus Foundation basically gave almost all of their remaining money to South Milwaukee. $8 million went to the city, and $2 million went to the, school district. The high school was the benefactor of it. We ended up, having $1 million that is going towards STEM, and then $1 million for the field.
So once you guys got that gift, what were the next steps? Did you have a conversation then, like, well, now we're a third of the way or a quarter of the way there? What did you do next?
I think after that, we formed the committee, and then we said, okay, if we were able to do approximately a third, we thought that was a fair breakdown.
What do you mean by that?
So if we've got the Bucyrus Foundation, so our project ended up being, what, 3.4 million?
3.4, yeah.
Which I know is much smaller, because you've got a much bigger scale going on, but for us, we thought if we did a third, Bucyrus was a third, if the school district came up with a third through their budgeting process, and then private, which would be our committee, with a little bit more than a third. We were at 1.3 million is what we need to raise. We just thought it would be a fair way to market this, if you will, to communicate this, like, look, we're not asking the district to pay the full load. We're not asking private to pay the full load. This is a partnership, right? This is business and community, and this is a group of people and community members and parents and all of that are gonna step forward, and then the school district. So we just thought it was a good mix of having a third. Again, we have a little bit more than our share of the third, but that's fine. That's kind of the way we looked at it.
I don't know who is best to answer this, but how were you able to, convince is not the right word, but when you went to the school board with your plan and talked about a four-year plan or a four-year window, was that a difficult sell, and/or why did you decide on 4 years, or tell me a little bit about that if someone can.
I think for some of the people on the school board, it was not a difficult sell, and for others, it still is a difficult sell, even though it's all been accomplished and it's almost all paid for. We have about 300,000 shy of our goal. So, I mean, I consider that a success, but I know we had a lot of naysayers in the beginning. And I'll tell you what, don't tell me I can't do it, because I'm gonna show you up and do it. So it was, for us, it was that personal pride in our community and in sports, and all our kids went to this school, and it was like, oh no, we're doing this. And I think they just saw the passion of our committee come and talk about the project and how we needed it for safety, we needed it to grow the programs, we needed it for the community, we need it for community outreach as far as having community activities on the fields. And, this was gonna be a game changer for the city of South Milwaukee. I mean, we're a small little town, and when you do something like this on this magnitude, it really can change the dynamic of how people view that town. And that's kind of just the essence where we went in there. And I think we proved to them over time that we were really serious. This was something we want.
And I think the other big thing, at least from our standpoint, was our school could not use our fields for FIAD. We could not use them because they were so bad if it rained that you could not go on it. At a track meet, they'd have to close off the infield because we had to save it for football game, or soccer, whatever. So that was a big sell to our school board, is like, look, we can use this 24/7 with, FIAD, and band can practice on it. Our band was practicing in the parking lot because they couldn't go on the field. So that was, I think, another big sell to our school board, was like, look, this has to get done, And I think that helped to get it over the hump.
Yeah.
And one of the things that we had to get the school board to do was to trust us.
Yeah.
Because we went to the school board and said, because they wanted to know when money was coming in. And we were like, okay, but we're not having an every other week meeting to let you know what our checks and balances are. You're gonna have to trust that we're gonna do the things that we need to do and go out and advocate, get money, and when we got big money or at certain times, Mary would go in, present it to them, but there still had to be that trust factor in our group that we were going to do this.
And I think that's part of who's on the committee, right? It's people that you know are gonna do the right thing. And that helped in our committee. Everyone is there for the right purpose.
So the project was completed in last November, I think, and you had not yet gotten to your final fundraising goal. How difficult?
Still aren't, so if any of you want to write a check, I would
So my
gladly-
question is, how difficult
take it.
has it been since the project was completed to continue fundraising? Has it dried up? I know you still have some commitments out there, some of the 4-year commitments, but how difficult has it been since?
Well, Sandy warned us from the beginning
Yeah.
that it would be harder once it was done.
Yep.
And that has not, I mean, that's been true. But there's also those that now, Jeff's been a big part of running a raffle, a whiskey raffle. And so I can get guys now my age to at least buy some raffle tickets because they know that they might get something out of it, but they're at least contributing to the fund. We had a couple of naysayers in the beginning that said they would never donate, and they became part of our $1,000 club. So it hasn't been as easy, of course, because they see it is done, but there are still people that are contributing.
You've already segued into the next question. What are some of the fundraising efforts that you did? Again, I know things kicked off with the big gift from Bucyrus. I know you did some naming rights. Maybe you can touch on those. You mentioned the $1,000 club. Maybe you can talk a little bit about that, and then some of the other things you've done to raise some of these dollars.
I'll just name a few, and then Mary can go into stuff. But it's been a lot of work, actually. But we've had 2 bourbon raffles that have raised almost $10,000, believe it or not. We've had some galas that have raised money, things like that. But the biggest thing that we had trouble with was our fundraising at Brewer Games. We're gonna agree to, our 13 booster clubs, we're all gonna take one night, we're gonna do 13 games and 3 concerts, and that was all great and dandy until it came time to sign them up. And then it was 8 members of the football team, and 8 members of the football team, and 8 members of the football team.
Or this staff.
Yeah.
Or the committee.
Or the
Or
committee
did,
doing 13 games.
yeah.
And we actually had to miss a game, and we thought we were gonna lose our deposit, but we got that worked out. So we ended up raising, I don't know, $15,000 at the Brewer Games.
17,200.
And it can be a great fundraiser, but you have to get the people to commit. And we only committed to 13 games. You can do 40 games, The Boy Scouts do it every year for 80 games, and they raise $250,000. So, but you have to get the people to do that, and you gotta get them to commit. And we had trouble doing that, and we're not doing that again this year.
Mary, can you talk about the $1,000 club and
I got some
whether
brochures
or not it
too,
was-
I'll pass
yeah.
around it.
Yeah.
whether or not that was successful, or?
So we thought the $1,000 club, especially if we marketed it as, you could pay it over the 4 years, right? So 250,000, or 200, I wish.
That'd be great.
200, that's a Freudian
$1,000,000
slip
the
there,
$1,000,000
yeah,
club,
like, wow,
right?
write the
Yeah.
check. But if everybody in the $1,000 club, you could just commit to $250 a year for the 4 years. We thought that was doable for a lot of our parent, or like parents of kids in the district, alumni, that kind of thing. It went over pretty good. I think we have 47 $1,000 club members, okay? So I'm not gonna poo-poo $47,000. You're a much bigger district, so I would think, my goodness, right? You could have a much bigger number of people involved with that. But one of the things we thought we would do is, if you donated to the $1,000 club, you would get a gold card. And that gold card has your name on it, and you get into any home field sporting event for free, for your life. You carry that gold card, you are now a gold member of our district, and you get in for the rest of your life into a free regular season home sporting event. And it wasn't even that I think people are like, oh my God, I'm gonna use this every single day, I'm going to tennis, and I'm going to volleyball, and I'm going to wrestling. But it's just that, prestige of like, I'm a gold member now. I've got this gold card, and that means something to the 47 people that, you're on there.
I'm from South Milwaukee.
Right. So, and we thank you for being a gold member. And we said, you could even do like a group of people, just a group of alumni, and you could put one name on there and just transfer the card, every year, and everybody shares it or something. So that has been good. We tried one for businesses in town, but again, we're a super small community. I mean, you have Milwaukee Ave, that's where our businesses are for the most part.
Bars.
So a lot of bars,
But the big thing was we actually, when we went through this, one of our goals was not to hit up the businesses.
right,
Because they get hit up all the time for everything. So we actually avoided our businesses because, we don't have a Culver's in town. We have to go to Oak Creek to get Culver's and things like that. So we don't have the same type of
yeah.
big,
The
big
network isn't
stores or
there.
whatever in our town that we could go and hit. And a lot of the smaller ones, they're just getting by. So we made it a goal not to try to do that unless they wanted to be part of the $1,000 club.
And for,
Yeah.
and for the naming rights,
just gonna ask that.
we got our group together, and everyone, I think, had to come up with 10 or 15 businesses or wealthy individuals in our community, and we wrote those down, and then we just reached out to them and says, hey, we have these naming rights, here they are, what do you want? And we did get some, we do have a few naming rights. And so that worked out. That got us, up to this a higher level of funds. And you'll see on our brochures, and Sandy was a big part of this, how we were going to categorize our levels. And the first 2 or 3 are good, but we are talking about this, that we would have changed the one level where it's 0 to $4,999, right? hon?
Yeah, I think it's like a $10 to $4,000 night. That's a big gap with, I gave $20 and I gave 4,500.
Yeah,
And they're in the same category.
yeah.
So, I didn't know what I didn't know, and so when we came up with these categories, we definitely would change that. Because every name is on our donor wall, whether you gave $10, whether you gave $100,000. Now, there's different categories, but really, at the end of the day,
Yeah.
they're all still on the wall.
Sure.
So we would definitely change that. I wouldn't put too much of a gap in the dollar amounts in your categories.
Yeah, and
I think that was
and
a
our original
mistake.
goal with the $1,000 club was, and Sandy had mentioned this, our fundraiser, said if you can get 1,000 people to donate $1,000, that's $1 million.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
we got 47,
Yeah,
and
Yeah.
still working on it,
yeah,
But we still were able to make it happen. So
Right.
It's not like that goal was
Yeah.
missed and all, we lost out on it. I mean,
Right.
that's we
Yes.
missed by a lot.
Yeah.
yeah.
We still did it. So, I mean, obviously, we did some things that worked.
I think,
Right.
I've been asked a handful of times about grants, and I know you guys applied for, I believe it was the NFL grant and the Green Bay Packer grant, or is that the same grant, or is it two different
they're-
ones?
Two different
they're
ones.
two different ones.
So
Yeah.
I don't think, those are based on a somewhat socioeconomic
Yep.
status of
Free
the
and
community.
reduced lunches, income levels, yeah.
Did you apply for any other grants?
Yeah, we applied for several, and again, our comms guy was key in it.
Yeah.
'Cause he had done some grants before, so he just kept rolling with them. And so, yeah, I mean, there's a ton of them out there.
Yeah.
It's just, it's time consuming to do them.
Sure.
And, like, from our standpoint, whatever we applied for, we'll have record of it. We'll share the language with you guys.
Oh, sure, that'd be great.
So.
Although we didn't get them, so maybe change the
Yeah, well,
language
yeah,
a little
well,
bit.
You're smart, you're from Southwell, you'll.
I am, yes, as mentioned, yes.
But there's also grants from the DNR about wetlands and, think big when think broad, I should say, when you think about grants. It's not just sports. I mean, it can be about the environment, it could be about getting kids involved and, just think in a broader sense because there is a ton of money out there. You just need somebody that knows how to write grants.
You can apply apply for a couple of grants, that are music-based. And,
Yeah.
you know, had we had a more of a band presence, which we haven't had, we're hopefully gonna add more to it, but, you
Yeah.
know, there are grants for that.
Sure.
Yeah.
That are out there as well.
Yeah.
It's shotgun approach, just get as many out there as you can.
I have one more question, and then I want to open it up and let everyone else ask their questions. Hopefully they have some. I'm going to combine the last two on your sheet, but you know, what made this group, in your opinion, successful, and why did you choose to not only get involved but also be involved? You know, on specifically as in the roles that you were like. I mean, you could be involved and not necessarily be leading it or doing all the treasury work and that kind of thing. But what made it successful, and why did you want to be a part of it?
Well, let me just jump in and say, for me, I think we all respect each other. We all like each other. And there was never a person in the room that had to be right and had to control and had to, you know, everyone's opinions came to the table and, you know, I disagree, I agree, let's do this, I thought about this. Like, no one ever, I thought, in any meeting at any time was like, you suck. You know, like, that was just never, that was never the lay of the land in any of our meetings and still to this day, and we've been at it for a while. It's just a genuine respect for everyone's opinion and all of their experiences that brought them to the table.
And I think, you know, the main reason why I got involved was, I'm a graduate of South Milwaukee. I coached high school football. I coached my kids in grade school football. I'm the treasurer of the Football Booster Club, so we had a big interest in this. But I knew that Ante was trying to get this done for the last 15 years, and I seen my kids play on that football field. And we lost games. We lost playoff games, one to Waterford when my son was playing, because that field was so
How does
sloppy.
he remember this? I don't remember this. I'm the mom. I don't
It was
remember
literally
this.
pouring down rain, dangerously bad. And we had a meeting, and our superintendent said, "Man, that field's okay. You just got to stay off it."
Which was odd because Ante had to arrange a helicopter to come and dry the field.
Yeah.
And I'm not joking.
Yeah.
It's one of
That
my
is-
favorite pictures of my son with the
With the-
helicopter hovering.
Hovering to dry our field.
But-
And then you're like,
Try to
how
play
can
a
that
playoff
be
game
that
out
this
of
is a safe field? Like, it just
But it
didn't
really,
make sense.
and that really comes down to the bottom line is that, you know, this is great, Dave, that you're doing this and you have all these people here. But it won't matter unless that man right there is on board and that man right there is on board and he convinced the school board to do this. And that is, I'm telling you, that is the bottom line. And you people out there have to push them to believe that. Now, yes, your project is 3 times as bigger than ours. But then you have to decide what is the biggest need now and what you can, you know, go forward. And the reason we did all 3 fields at the same time, and we were talking to Dave about this, was because we saved a bunch of money because all the equipment was already there. And so they said, if you do them all at once, you're gonna save all this money. It's not getting any cheaper, right? You know, so we just said, you know, we're gonna do this and we're committed to raising the funds, so.
Coach?
Well, for me, like I said, I born and raised in South Milwaukee, and my motto was always to leave it better than I found it. And somebody took care of me when I was a kid, so and the whole attitude thing, I can tell you right now what Mary said in the beginning, as far as don't tell me I can't do something. That was really it. As a former football coach and baseball coach, our fields were really bad, and I know that this guy would fight for us every year to try to make things better. And we had dads that would roll our infield so that, you know, their son that played third base wouldn't get killed on a ground ball and things like that. And we went through it. And now to see my grandkids playing on there is very rewarding. So for the old guy in the crowd, I can tell you it's very gratifying to me for the whole community, because any kid that I see, I ref the 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade flag football games on Saturday mornings, just again so that I can see them little buggers come across there and, you know, see the smiles on their faces. That makes it all worth it. So Don't let anybody tell you you can't do this project. And looking at the thing, if I was sitting here, I'd say we're gonna do the whole freaking thing. So that's the way I'd look at it.
Ante?
Biggest reason that we were successful is the group of people we had were all the right people, and they were the right people because we all care. That's it. I mean, that's the bottom line. We care, and we said, whatever it is that we need to do, we're gonna get it done to make this happen so that we don't have to do what we've been doing forever. The first time I brought it up to have turf in South Milwaukee, I applied for the AD job in March of 2003, and I had it in the packet that I applied with. And, you know, I remember bringing it up every year afterwards, and I remember being pointed at by someone saying, if I ever bring that up again, I can find another job. But I kept bringing it up because it was not something that we could do. I have photos, if anybody wants to see what our field would look like. You can use them if you want. I have photos of how bad the field was in the fall of 2020. We had a kid linebacker about 20 feet in front of me, and I was videotaping the play at the time. His foot went into a mud hole and sunk, and he snapped his leg. And at that point, I showed the video to the superintendent. Said, we got to do something. And you know, everybody that's on this committee cares and cared so much and worked their butts off like crazy. And you know, without what they did, it wouldn't have happened. So super appreciative that we were lucky enough to have these great people. And with this group here, that makes me really happy to see this many people, because that's, you guys are right now in a great spot, that so many of you, both from the district, you know, you have the head guy here, you got, I mean, some awesome athletic directors, and, you know, obviously coaches, parents. It makes my heart feel really good, because this is a really good start.
I've asked a lot of questions, and I'd love it if anyone has any questions. Yeah, go ahead.
Talk about this, football with the remainder we have today. Is that remainder to finish the project itself, or is that for the ongoing maintenance that we require over the course? Because if we do have a life, 10, 15 years.
I'm gonna,
depending on
just
how
give me a
long
second.
it's maintained.
I'm going to repeat the question because
Oh, yeah.
we're recording the meeting for those. No, it's good. The question is, the fundraising that is still ongoing, is it to complete the commitment, the financial commitment that you had made for the initial project, or is it for ongoing maintenance? Good, yep.
I think it's both. I think it's a little bit of both. We
Yeah.
still have our commitment to fulfill, and I'm no quitter, so it's gonna get done. And then, we're gonna try and overshoot that, and then that'll go towards the maintenance.
And that's part of what we're gonna be considering and moving forward in communications with the committee and the district. Like you said, you're gonna have repairs that are necessary, you're gonna have to replace it, everything, eventually, and the goal, you know, my stance is, you know, moving forward from this point, a lot of what we're, and I think that it could actually help us in terms of fundraising, in particular from parents of a 7-year-old, let's say. Having money that we are earmarking towards replacement slash repair, you know, field maintenance in general, just use that as the term instead of saying replacement, I guess. Field maintenance, that's smart in my opinion, because that's money that we don't have, and this would then start to generate money that we'll be able to use for all of those needs that will come up in the future.
Although from part of it, I do feel like because our fields were in such bad shape, that we have a cost savings as well from the district. So what we don't have to put in, you know, the helicopter and the, you know, all the crazy stuff we do to keep the fields up. So if we can save that money, then that's a savings that could be used for the maintenance too. So it's, you know, it's a little bit of a shell game at some point where you're like, okay, well, we didn't have to spend 75,000 this year to do all that. Now that money can go into there, and it's really just a wash.
In conjunction with that, how was the different funding?
Yep.
You started the construction in the third into the fourth year, so you had pledges out there for your, and then, how was that gap funded?
Yeah, the
Can
district,
I repeat it real quick?
yeah, go ahead.
So the question is, you had a shortfall, I guess, or you didn't get to your fundraising goal by the
Yet.
time the project started. How was that gap or the rest of the project funded? And well, I'll let you answer that.
Yeah, so, it was a nice, fortuitous event that the mortgage of the high school was paid off right about the time when we started this. So they had some money that they were putting towards the mortgage of our new high school that was now paid off. And so they had, a little bit of extra cash that wouldn't have normally been there. So the district said they'll go ahead and fund it, knowing that that money is coming in from us, and it has.
So the district covered.
Yep, the district covered it, yeah.
Okay. Anybody else?
No public financing, no bond,
Zero,
based on the pledges,
zero, yep.
moving forward to year two with a four-year pledge. No one said, okay, we raised 500, we got another 500 pledges sufficient, and then move ahead.
Nope,
Yeah, all of the bills are paid, so.
yep.
I think you had mentioned on like the short, that you guys are short, you were thinking about the youth, so we have big youth programs here in Muncie North, District North, and our whole district with those schools. I think like targeting them, especially like you said now that it's done, right, to be able to help kind of bring it forward, would not be a bad idea for us. I mean, I think it's gonna be hard, right, but maybe it's gonna always be hard, so it would be a good tool to help with it.
Let me just, I'll rephrase that in a way. How are the youth groups throughout the city involved, or how were they involved in any of the fundraising or in terms of a partnership with the project itself or the facilities? That
So,
kind of,
one of the things that I was a proponent of, and it didn't end up happening, but, you know, and I'm not a budget person per se from the district, so I don't know all the funds, but I thought it made sense that the rec department, which is funded differently than the school budgets,
Fund 80, yeah.
Fund 80, if we were allowing the rec department to use all the fields, which we do, there should be some payment from Fund 80 to the district or to the fields itself, and that never happened. I think that was short-sighted, and, you know, I'm not a CPA in the room, but I think there's a way that you can charge the rec department to use those facilities, and it still is above board, and it's not using anything inappropriately. Maybe you can all figure that out. I'm definitely not the smartest person in the room, so figure it out, and that might help the gap. But our district, we were told no, that we cannot do that.
can I piggyback on that? Because there's a question that came up quite a bit about, do you rent the facilities out to other groups? Any of the youth baseball groups, youth softball groups, any
Yeah,
of those?
we've had a couple of groups that have already used it this summer.
And you are charging them?
Yes.
And, okay.
Yeah.
And that,
Yeah,
is that
and-
money, is that money used towards the balance of the project, or is that just going into the athletic fund, or how, I'm just curious?
Not into the athletic
Or the
fund.
community service fund?
My understanding is it just went into the general fund.
Yeah.
So, you know,
Okay.
which the district, you know, that's essentially the same thing, because it, you know, the general fund and the district paid for the remainder of everything.
Did you have a plan to rent the facility? That was a question that came up quite a bit from our group, as far as, you know, what revenue could we generate, and we're not there yet because we don't know the scope of the project, but was that part of your thinking as far as having the ability to raise or earn some money, or, you know, create revenue by renting out the facilities?
I think it was in our plan. It was actually a big part of our plan to say we could rent the facilities out, we could bring back our old spectacle parade that we used, you know, we really wanted to make it community-based, so that we could get a lot more people on board. So, and there is ways that you can rent it out for, different leagues, and, you know, we haven't done that a lot yet, Ante, but, you know, I know baseball we have, but not the football, soccer fields.
Yeah, baseball and softball, we've had, some teams there. The trick is, there's a fine line, because, like, my initial stance when we were looking at doing this was, oh yeah, we can do this, we can do that. But it's also, well, who is going to be there when that is being used? And, you know, from April 17th of 2023 to Thanksgiving Day, that was basically the construction window. Thanksgiving Day was the second calendar day that I did not spend on campus because of the project. Because when our building was built and opened in 2004, the new high school, it's 20 years old, but when that was built, so many shortcuts were taken because we didn't have somebody who was there every day to check on stuff. And I said, for the turf and stadium project, that's not happening. So I said, I'll be the one that's there. I mean, you know, we just can't, you just can't make,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
manufacture people who are gonna be supervising things. And there becomes a point where there's too much use, and then you shorten the life. So there's gotta be a balance there.
Sure.
So I think we're gonna be, I think, you know, our Little League had All-Stars. Little League used it for 2 weeks. You know, things like that where the community is using it. Those are things that are no-brainers. You know, I get people who say, hey, we wanna run this, semi-pro football league, and have it every Friday night in the summer. And I have no offense to them, I'm sure it's great stuff. I have zero interest in opening that field up for, you know, a bunch of 30-year-olds to play football when the next day, you know, we're cleaning it up and we have
Sure.
other kids that
Sure.
wanna use it.
I hijacked it again, and I asked a couple questions. Are there any other questions from the group?
Once your facilities are complete, did you get buy-in from the other booster clubs?
The question, I'm just gonna repeat it.
Let him repeat it.
This is,
Real quick,
this is,
Mary,
oh, okay.
The question is, once the project was completed, did the other booster clubs buy into the project? I know we started with football, and I think you're about to say no.
No.
Our second biggest donor booster club was our basketball booster club, unfortunately.
That was gonna be my next question, was going to be, you mentioned, those are all people with booster clubs, which we all fall individual booster clubs, who use your facilities, who are the ones who are buying in. Were you getting something, before you mentioned marching band, which is important, you said they bought it. So that's good, John, that, you know, your basketball program was a major contributor, or your volleyball program, you know, you have to get those people to buy in too, I think that's another thing.
Yeah.
And I know your athletes are playing multiple sports,
Yep.
not as much as back in the day, but somehow you really have to get the booster clubs, which are significant entities here in this community, like two high schools, to also buy into, even though maybe some of their kids are not participating on those fields.
Yeah, like, we talked about this, like, when my wife had said that if we were to do it again, we would have went to baseball, quite honestly, and said, okay, we'll do the baseball field, but we want a commitment for you guys to fundraise $30,000, right? Instead, they gave us some, which is great. We appreciate everything you got, but I think we could have been a little bit more stern with some of the clubs. We understand some of our clubs are a lot smaller than yours, but we needed to get more of a commitment from them to help us fundraise. You know, we couldn't get a parent to help. We couldn't get the kids more involved. And maybe it was because our group was so small, you know, we couldn't reach out to all that. But I think it's very important that you get those groups to buy in right up front and say, you know, hey, instead of buying a new batting cage this year, you know, we got to fundraise and we got to give this to this group because this is what we're going to get, right?
And if it's not coming directly from the booster club, then in time, right, with their time and talent, doing the Brewer games, going to the Fiserv basketball and,
Right.
you know, running concessions. I mean, there's a lot you can do to make money outside of your booster club in a big way, as long as you have time commitments too. So if you have soccer and, we have a super small soccer team, right? Do we have a soccer team this year? Yeah, we do, okay.
24 kids.
Okay, 24 kids. But, not a lot of parents, right? So, okay, maybe their commitment is, you gotta do 30 hours of brewer games. But it's gotta be something. Because in the beginning, we had the option of just doing the football field. And again, we just didn't think it was right. And so we expanded it. And I'm glad we did. It was the right thing to do, and it looks great. But again, there's got to be more people at the table then.
Well, like you said, for the brewer games, like you had everybody in, right? But
Yeah.
then it just fell apart, so there
Yeah.
needs to be some type of repercussion for that too. Some sort, maybe that's not the right word, but we had that in a lot of our youth programs too.
Yeah.
The theater programs, if you volunteer to do concessions and we get out of here, something, maybe we do something more robust that way, to hold people accountable, right? for their
Right.
work. I don't know, especially
Yeah.
on a bigger scale.
One of the things too that I think that we weren't successful with is we didn't get the principals of our elementary schools to buy in.
Just gonna ask.
And I think that they would have pushed their PTOs, because I thought our group had a great plan for the Brewer game. Like Jeff said, we took 13 games, but we had 8 booster clubs, we had 5 parent groups of PTOs, and we thought all they have to do is one day. Just commit to one day, but nobody in some of the groups would hold them accountable to just do that one day. And all they had to come up with was, 8 people? So, and if there would have been more, well, then the Brewers will accommodate you by giving you a bigger booth and you make more money. But there were so many times towards the end of the year where I can tell you, Jeff, Mary, and we did the 3-game series against the Cardinals because we couldn't get anybody else to go. And that, I think, was probably the only really frustrating thing for us. Now, we had fun when we did it, but it was still, we had to go 3 days in a row and suck up that time because somebody else wouldn't do it.
We even gave them an incentive that if they wanted to do another brewer game, that we would give their PTO a portion of the money. Like if they did one brewer game and then wanted to do a concert, we were gonna give them a portion of that money,
Half.
half to go back to their PTO. That didn't work either.
Yeah.
So,
Paul, I know you had another question.
How does South Milwaukee fund their athletic programs and the games and the parks and all that? Is it through one fund or is it through, fund that you brought up earlier about how the booster club has funded? You're in a room full of boosters, probably residents who are trying to fundraise for our own individual sports.
Yep.
And you're talking about needing to get people on board. We're on board. If you come up with 30 on top of trying to come up with what our operating budget is on just an annual basis, we don't even raise that much in a year just to new parks on top of baseball. Baseball has some logistics that basketball or some of the sports don't have. And so that is a challenge as well because now we're competing for dollars just to be able to
Right,
Let me just.
yeah.
So just to recap, the question is, the booster clubs are already raising a lot of funds for their annual operating costs. How can you expect them to, and it sounds like maybe some of them didn't, but how can you expect them to raise more funds on top of what they're already raising to just get through the season?
Well, I think what we found out is, again, it comes back to the priority, right? So if you need a tarp, maybe you don't get that tarp this year, and all that fundraiser money goes towards this. But what we found out was that we had got a commitment from a booster club, but then they were holding all these fundraisers, 3 or 4 fundraisers that were pretty much going towards what they wanted for their program. And that kind of got us like, I think they maybe could have committed more because they're having all these fundraisers, And so I think you need to say, okay, what do we really need for that year? And then, okay, maybe you have to do one more fundraiser and say all this money from this fundraiser is going to go towards our commitment. And maybe it's a 3-year commitment. Maybe you guys decide to do 4. I don't know. But that's kind of what we found. If all the groups are fundraising just for their own sport, I think they need to either one, have another fundraiser, or maybe seriously think about what they really need and say, okay, we're gonna give this portion to the group.
And I know you have your operating expenses, but I think part of it is if the number's not 30,000, then we didn't hold them to anything. We're saying, okay, you tell me, can you do 5? Can you do, that type of thing?
Gotta be more realistic, and the other thing too, and actually we think you, this one over here, how many trucks got hurt? So, I may be able to reallocate some of the costs.
Right.
But, again, we factor that as well.
Sure.
Asking the parents to put more money on top of player fees and, travel and all those things.
Yeah.
I know what parents pay for travel balls, so they got lots of money.
But I do think if you give them an option of, okay, what is your commitment over 4 years? If it's $10,000, okay, is $2,500 a year over the 4 years manageable? Yeah, maybe. You know what I mean? It's not like I'm asking, well, I do ask for checks a lot, but I don't ask for it all at once.
No, that actually makes, I apologize, that makes a lot of sense in terms of how we fundraise and how we, if we know what we're earmarking it for,
Right.
we can probably do that over a 4-year period for, probably more than 10,000. It'll make more sense, it's easier to sell that way too, I think.
Yeah, I agree. And then the district knows that whatever they put in already, we have commitments, right? It's just a matter of the next year, we get them in, we give the district. Next year, we get them in, we give the
And
district,
maybe,
so.
maybe you guys could decide to do a broad fundraiser with all your groups and say that, okay, this, whatever it may be, there's things out there. I don't know if you work with Brand Tech or not, but there's things out there that you could do as a whole, as a district as a whole, and saying, this fundraiser is going towards this capital campaign. And then everyone is working on that fundraiser, not just, you're doing it, one extra fundraiser, and you're doing an extra fundraiser. It's the community that's, the district that's doing it. I mean, we had those issues too.
Can I get Meg first? Go ahead, Meg.
I have 2 questions. The first one is, it piqued my interest when you talked about the older generation, because New Berlin it's an established community, right? So you're noticing in this room, you're seeing a lot of younger faces, maybe the younger faces are more parents, or, that sort of thing. So the older generation isn't represented. So, can you tell me, like, when you spoke about talking to, like, the Lions and to Columbus, and we do have those clubs here in this community, did they contribute money, or was it more of just getting them on board? Like, how did speaking to them, how did they impact this process?
So when we spoke to the Lions Club, our communications guy put together for us like a really nice pep talk video, and it was really good. And the nice thing about our Lions, and I'm sure most Lions are that way, where again, they're very community based. And so, when Jeff and I went there, we were hoping we could get $5,000, and they gave us 25, that type of thing. So that group is there obviously for the right reasons and what they do. The Knights of Columbus in South Milwaukee is a lot smaller of a group, so we got less money from them, but again, they still contributed. So when I said some of the older people didn't necessarily want to do that, I mean, I have a group of buddies of mine that I golf with every Monday morning, and that was the hardest. I thought it would be a piece of cake for me. I go with all these brochures, thinking, here, you're going to give me $1,000, and I couldn't get one of them to do it, and I got the excuses of, it was good enough for me, or it was good enough for my kids, or my kids are gone. That's always the best one, and I said, well, my kids have been gone a long time too, but some of them, again, have at least contributed. They didn't give $1,000, but they have at least contributed to the fund, so,
I think having a younger group is to your advantage.
yeah.
I mean, our youngest has been out of high school now, I don't know, six years. Why do we do this still? Anyway, but I think having a younger group is totally to your advantage, because you see, all the elementary school kids, if those parents are involved, your kid is seeing where they're gonna play. They're seeing this new facility, this new everything. I mean, man, when the youth runs on that field, it's just like,
Yeah.
yeah, they're at the pearly gates. They just were like, oh, they're crazy. That's a big advantage, and lean into that.
And I think the sponsorship thing for all the different businesses you have in your area, it could be huge for you.
Yeah,
I know that they contribute a lot already. I see the advertising in that, but I mean, again, if they can put their name on something and say, we had one person where we told them that they could put their name up for a certain amount of money, and he was like, well, how long does that last? 3 years, 5 years? And we're like, no, dude, you, it's just gonna stay up there
Yeah.
until the building falls down or we're not around anymore.
yeah.
So,
Which you'll have to decide. If you want it in perpetuity, like we just said, once it's up there, like, we're out, you know what I mean? When we're done, right? Or if you want to sell advertising. So
Yeah.
that's up to you all, how you want to do that.
Meg, what was your other question?
Okay, and then my second question was, I didn't hear you speak much about this, but I'm just wondering if was there an alumni piece, like kind of tapping into?
I was just-
How did you get those people, or those names of your districts? How do you kind of find them?
Let me repeat that one.
Yep.
The question is, how did you get alumni, South Milwaukee alumni involved and/or be able to reach out to them, getting their contact
How
information?
did you
that sort of
find
thing?
out, Dave?
I think
Yeah.
I got a letter. I don't know, I got a
That's
letter,
it,
I think.
yeah.
I started with a letter.
Yep,
Yeah.
started with a letter.
Yeah.
Sent by me, but,
Yeah.
yeah.
Every couple of times we've done an alumni directory, and it just so happened that I was looking at doing that when this was coming up, and we put together, third-party group put together an alumni directory. It was not fun getting the phone calls from people complaining, why are you selling my information to people, et cetera, et cetera. But I've got a stack like this high of cards, postcards that got returned, but the vast majority of people who are still alive provided information. So I've got a great alumni book, and I had it electronically too, so it was easy to use. I think that was real helpful.
The other thing that we did was, in a part of our group of probably trying to think about donors, is we took that alumni piece and we said, okay, who do we know that is a brain surgeon? Who do we know who is wealthy? Who do we know who's got a lot of money? And we wrote those names down, and we have people working for Google, we have people working for Manpower, we tried to reach out to those people as best we could, because and that's where a large group is going to help. We had 10 people trying to think of all these rich alumni, and Ante, trying to think of their names and trying to get them information. So with a larger group that gets a big list of your alumni, and I'm sure you got very, very successful people here in New Berlin, will really, really help. And it might not be, we poached the idea of originally going, hey, can you give us $100,000? And then maybe that didn't work. So, and then maybe, well, okay, maybe they're part of the $1,000 club. That doesn't matter. We just want something from them, and that would really help.
Coach?
I just want to make a couple points that are just echoing what you're saying, Jeff. What you said about a group fundraiser for everything, you're dealing with 2 high school kids, all right? And a group fundraiser every year, each of these booster clubs, I had a booster club too when I was coaching it, and, you're going to have a turnover in your head of the booster club after X number of years. So you better have a good succession plan on who you're having in that the top jobs in your club. So if it could be established then to have this that it's going to be, yes, every year there's going to be a fundraiser that's for this purpose, and then everybody, when they come into the club, they know that this is part of our shtick. This is what we do. Then it's harder, I think, for all of a sudden, oh, Joe's gone now. Bob's not really maybe as good as Joe. No Bob's or Joe, sorry about that. We are. But, or Debbie or whatever, or Karen. And that way, you get to the point where you have the continuity. And I also think with what you said, Jeff, and you guys are talking about, there's a lot of, I'll use the other word first since I'm here, a lot of Lions out there who graduated from here. I had 2 daughters graduate from here. But I was a Viking on the other side. There's a lot of Lions and Vikings out there, and
I keep in touch with a lot of my former basketball players and a lot of students. And I know that they talk about the times they had in school and how much they appreciated the education. Now, that might sound kind of trite to a lot of people, or just say, it doesn't really work that way. There's a lot of people out there who still are Lions and Vikings, and they're not gonna give you, maybe all of them aren't gonna give you a ton of money, but they're gonna maybe give you a line to someone else who can give you more money, and they might give you a small amount, and they wanna feel to be a part of this. Because I really think your success, guys, is because you have a tight community. You have that rocket thing, you know, which I didn't even know until I read the brochure that you're not the Red Rockets anymore. You're just the Rockets.
Just the Rockets.
But, I mean, I remember South Milwaukee from being in the old Suburban Conference when I was at West Bell Central. So I think you have that tight thing. Now, we have a bigger community, but we have tight schools within the community. And I know from coaching in it, you know, and having daughters on one side and me on the other side, but I had a great relationship with the coaches on this side of town. And so it can be done, but I think setting up the parameters of group fundraiser sounds like a great idea to me. But touching alumni, we have two big schools. Now, they're not as big as your one school, maybe, not as big now, but they were bigger earlier. Let's touch that alumni base. And let's say, hey, you know, you were a Lion, you were a Viking, here's what we're gonna do. Maybe you didn't play football, maybe you run the band. I just think that's a good piece, whatever that is.
I don't want to take up anybody, or too much of anybody else's time, especially yours. But if there's any other questions, otherwise, if you think of questions after the fact, please send them my way and I can share them with you guys. I'm sure you guys would be happy to.
Dave, I'd just like to comment on one thing that I wrote down, and I know Mary commented on it before. But obviously New Berlin has a rec department, right?
Yes.
Okay, and I know Mary commented on Fund 80, but I wrote it down because I think it's so important, and I don't know how your district feels about that. But I tell you, if those rec programs are gonna be used in those fields, I am saying that I believe that you guys can use some kind of Fund 80 money for the purchase of those fields. Our district didn't go for it. I don't know what your district is. But like Mary said, we were convinced that we were gonna be able to use some Fund 80 money for this. Because that, you know, obviously, you know, we can, you know, raise the taxes a little bit for that. But that's gonna be an important piece. And you probably have a lot more rec things with the two schools. So I just say that because I think you guys should really, really consider that and look into that.
And Jeff, we currently, we utilize Fund 80, when the park, the rec department utilizes it, that's what we call it.
Okay.
Good.
So, that's established, and we will continue to look at that as an option.
Yeah.
Disappointing to hear that that wasn't an option, because it's a game changer for sure.
Yes.
on the rec department.
We thought that, we knew that. Unfortunately, our district didn't agree with us.
Some districts have done so with their projects, like in Racine. Others have said that no, it's up for debate on what people think is allowed and what isn't allowed, and so it's definitely worth exploring at a minimum,
Yeah.
in my opinion.
Any other questions for the panel? If not, I'd like to give them a round of applause and thank them for being here today.
Just one quick thing that I want to commend you guys on, the fact that POB is who you've been working with. That actually would have been one of my recommendations. Don't even think of anybody else to help you design it. So that was a brilliant decision that you guys made. I don't know if Kevin and Cody had.
Point of Beginnings is the group that, or the organization, the business that we're using to, or have used to draw up the plans that we've shared with you so far. So, and I owe Ante like $25 for saying that. So.
Yeah, no, but yeah, they without a doubt are the best in the business, and you guys are in phenomenal hands with them. To be honest, I contacted them during our project because of how good they are, and this, we didn't give them a penny. That's why I assumed we were going to use. We didn't pay them a dime, and they still helped us out of a couple of jams.